Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the Minister of Finance, who was right? The Prime Minister, who predicted that the New Zealand economy would grow reasonably aggressively in 2010-11, or the last 4 quarterly NZIER consensus forecast updates for GDP, which have progressively declined from 3.2% to just 0.8% for the year to March 2011.
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister was certainly correct. His comments were made in March 2009 and he said he believed that growth in 2010 would be positive. It turns out that for calendar year 2010 growth is about 1.5%. At the time the trough was negative 2.8%. So yes, it was aggressive growth from a low trough.
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr. Speaker, which of the following 3 quarters of growth would he classify as aggressive? June 2010's 0.1%, September's minus 0.2%, or December's 0.2%? Or is it more accurate to describe these as indicating that the economy has come to a standstill?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, a standstill, I think, would be zero growth probably, and for calendar 2010 we had 1.5%. That wasn't as high as we would have liked or as was expected actually 12 months ago, but given the depth of the recession, when the economy actually shrank by 2.8%, it wasn't a bad effort, and the reasons the economy has been growing more slowly have been rehearsed here many times. People are paying off debt, they are restricting their spending, and our exports are growing, and that's the right direction for the New Zealand economy.
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr. Speaker, to the Minister, when he criticised Treasury's prediction of just 0.4% extra growth over 4 years as a result of his $14 billion tax cut as being conservative, was this quarter's meagre 0.2% what he was hoping for?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, using the word conservative isn't a criticism. It's actually, in the current circumstances, wise.
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr. Speaker, was Treasury correct when it forecast that 66% of the GDP write-downs expected over the next 4 years are unrelated to either earthquake and are in fact the result of a failing economy?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, I think the Treasury have been quite straightforward that the flatter growth they're expecting this year is roughly about a third because of the earthquake and roughly about 2/3 because people are saving more than expected and being more careful with their spending than expected and doing less borrowing than expected. Those are sensible decisions by New Zealand households. It does mean in the short term the economy is flatter, but in the longer term it's a stronger platform for better economic performance.
The Honourable Sir Roger Douglas, supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, with real gross national disposable income per person effectively being the same today as it was 6 years ago, when will he move to ensure that the drivers of economic growth are given a higher priority in the government policy settings than they are receiving?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the member is right to point out that the combination of bad policy from the previous government, an early start to the New Zealand recession, and then the global financial crisis means that incomes are only getting back to where they were 4 to 6 years ago. From the government's point of view, attaining economic growth is our top priority. It will help us deal with issues like the Christchurch recovery, but we're going about that in a reasonably considered and moderate way.
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr. Speaker, to the Minister, in light of today's flat GDP figures, what exactly is his plan to create jobs, to lift incomes and to give New Zealanders just a glimmer of hope for a better future?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it could need some time to outline every detail of that plan, but the member will be familiar with some aspects of it, such as our extensive investment in infrastructure, reforming of making the public sector more efficient, significant tax changes which were announced last year, a focus on education standards and skills, as well as strong support for the business community through research and innovation.
The Honourable Sir Roger Douglas.
Speaker, with economic progress and growth so dependent on private ownership, competitive markets, an efficient capital market and low taxes, when will these policy aspects be given more prominence by the government?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr Speaker, we believe they are given prominence by the government. The member and his party believe the government should be much more aggressive about that. That's just one of the differences between National and ACT. It doesn't stop us working constructively with the member's party to move ahead in that direction.
Question number 7, Dr.